Good morning, all of you. So, let us start your next topic, that is topic 1.2, Industrial Society and Social Change. So, there were various changes that was taking place in the society at that time because of coming up of industries. ठीक है, industries आ रही थी, लोग shift हो रहे थे. They were coming from rural areas to urban areas. So, there were drastic changes that were taking place. Let us see. These political trends were sign of new time. It was a time of profound social and economic changes. It was a time when new cities came up and new industrialized regions developed. Railways expanded and the industrial revolution occurred. So this was the time when modernity was taking place. ठीक है, modernity आ रही थी, डेवलपमेंट हो रहे थे, सोसाइटी बदल रही थी, लोगों की इकोनॉमिक कंडीशंस बदल रही थी. पीपल हु वर पुअर, दे वर गेटिंग, यू नॉट से रिच, बट या दे वर गेटिंग फाइनेंशियली मोर सिक्योर्ड बिकॉज दे हैड जॉब्स नाउ. ओके, दे वर मॉडर्नाइजिंग दमसेल्फ क्योंकि वो गांव से शहरों में आ रहे थे. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट रेलवेज़ वर एक्सपैंडिंग, रेलवेज़ और बढ़ रही थी क्योंकि अगर इंडस्ट्रीज़ हैं तो रॉ मटेरियल्स ले जाना, फिनिश प्रोडक्ट्स को लाना, ये सब रेलवेज़ करते थे. ट्रांसपोर्टेशन के काम में इन्वॉल्व थे रेलवेज़. सो बेसिकली व्हाट वाज हैपनिंग वाज इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन वाज अकरिंग. इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन आ रही थी. इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन बॉट मैन, वुमेन, चिल्ड्रन टू फैक्ट्रीज. ठीक है, क्योंकि इंडस्ट्रीज ओपन हो गई थी, इट वॉज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू जनरेट वर्किंग फोर्स. लेबरर्स लाना, मैनुअल लेबरर्स लाना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो गए थे. सो मैन, वुमेन एंड चिल्ड्रन, दे वर कमिंग टू फैक्ट्रीज टू वर्क एज अ मैनुअल लेबरर. Work hours were often large and wages were poor. Unemployment was common, particularly during times of low demand for industrial goods. Housing and sanitation were problems since towns were growing rapidly. Liberals and radicals searched for solution to these issues. So what happened? Now unemployment was a very common phenomenon. Why? Because people migrated from villages to cities. अब शहरों में आ गए थे, उनके पास कोई jobs नहीं थी. So unemployment was very common. So they were ready to work for any wage. कम से कम सैलरी पे भी, कम से कम वेजेस पे भी वो वर्क करने के लिए रेडी हो गए थे. एंड सिंस दे वर इन डर्थ ऑफ जॉब्स, द एडवांटेज वॉज टेकन बाय द इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट. ठीक है, जो इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट थे, जो फैक्ट्री ओनर्स थे, वो इसकी एडवांटेज लेते थे, उनसे ज़्यादा काम कराते थे और कम वेजेस पे करते थे. सो वर्क आवर्स वर लॉन्गर एंड वेजेस वर पुअर. ओके, apart from that, see, if you are reading that wages were poor, salaries kam thi, wages kam thi, definitely they'll not have a very proper house to live. So they faced problem of housing and sanitation. ठीक है, housing, घर की problem, sanitation, hygiene की problem, ये बहुत common problems हो चुकी थी. Okay, now let us see. Almost all industries were the properties of individual. Liberals and radicals themselves were often property owners and employers. Having made their wealth through trade or industrial venture, they felt that such efforts should be encouraged. That it benefits would be achieved if the workforce in the economy was wealthy and citizens were educated. So opposed to the privileges the old aristocracy had by birth. They firmly believed in the value of individual effort, labor and enterprise. If freedom of individual was ensured, if the poor could labor and those with capital could operate themselves restraints, they believed that society would develop. Many working men and women who wanted change in the society rallied around liberals and radical groups and parties in the early 19th century. Some nationalists. So this was up till now. Basically, I was revising with you the previous video that I have sent. ठीक है, कि कैसे लिबरल्स ने, कैसे रेडिकल्स ने, बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ यू कंप्लेंट दैट वी डिड नॉट गेट द वीडियोस. आई रिवाइज्ड विथ यू कि बहुत सारे लोगों को प्रॉब्लम होने लगी. जितने प्रॉपर्टी ओनर्स थे वो लिबरल्स और रेडिकल सोच वाले थे. सो पीपल दे स्टार्टेड सपोर्टिंग देम बिकॉज एट दैट टाइम in comparison to the conservatives, liberal ideologies and radical ideologies were much more attractive for the people. Now let us see. Some nationalists, liberals, radicals wanted revolution to put an end to the kind of government established in Europe in 1815. In France, Italy, Germany, Russia, they became revolutionaries and worked to overthrow the existing monarch. Nationalist talks of the revolution, they would create nations which all the citizens would have equal right. After 1815, Giuseppe Mazzini, an Italian nationalist, conspired with others to achieve this in Italy. Nationalists elsewhere include India read his writings. So what happened? So now one thing became very common for the people that सबसे पहले हमें अगर अपनी राइट्स चाहिए तो एक फीलिंग ऑफ नेशनलिज्म लानी होगी. ठीक है, लोगों को कन्विंस करना होगा दैट यू हैव सच अ ग्लोरियस पास्ट एंड यू बिलोंग टू दिस ब्यूटिफुल कंट्री. So to do that, what they started doing is that they started writing about nationalism. ठीक है, और गिसिपी मजीनी जो कि बहुत फेमस पर्सन है इन इटली, ही वॉज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर यूनिफिकेशन ऑफ इटली. जैसे इंडिया में सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल ने यूनाइट किया था इंडिया को, वैसे ही गिसिपी मजीनी ने यूनाइट किया था इटली को. सो what he did was that he started writing about nationalism, which later India में उनकी writings को as a source of inspiration पढ़ा जाने लगा. Okay, now let us see your next topic, that is द कमिंग ऑफ सोशलिज्म टू यूरोप. ठीक है, अभी यूरोप में सोशलिज्म कैसे आई. ठीक है, वर्ड सोशलिज्म का मतलब क्या होता है वो आप ऑलरेडी जानते हैं. ठीक है, सोशलिज्म का मतलब होता है दैट पूरे सोसाइटी को एज होल लेके जब हम चलते हैं. ठीक है, वी डू नॉट कैटेगराइज दैट यू नो माई things or my property belongs to me. Everything belongs to nation and should be equally and in the same proportion it should be divided to all. This is the thought of socialism. ठीक है, सारे सोसाइटी को एक साथ सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट ना देख के पूरी सोसाइटी की डेवलपमेंट जब हम देखने लगते हैं, सो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज सोशलिज्म. ओके, नाउ the coming of socialism to Europe, perhaps one of the most far-reaching vision of how society would be structured was socialism. By the mid-19th century in Europe, socialism was a well-known body of idea that attracted widespread attention. Definitely, it will attract widespread attention because it was for the first time there was no category divided. It was not that somebody was privileged and others were at disadvantage. ऐसा कोई segregation नहीं था. Now let us see. Socialists were against private property and saw it as the root of all the social ills of the time. Why? Individuals owned the property that gave employment, but the properties were concentrated only to the personal gain, not with the welfare of those who made the property productive. So if the society was as whole rather than single individual controlled property, more attention would be paid to collective social interest. Socialists wanted this change and campaigned for it. So what socialists they felt was that प्रॉपर्टी ओनर्स जो थे वो एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट कर रहे थे, सैलरीज दे रहे थे, बट जो प्रॉफिट्स हो रही थी उस काम से वो लोगों में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट नहीं हो रही थी, प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग नहीं हो रही थी. सैलरी सपोज अगर लेबरर्स ने मिलके 10 लाख का 10 लाख का प्रॉफिट कराया, उसमें से उनके 2 लाख सैलरी हो गई और 8 लाख जो है वो कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड रह गया एक इंडिविजुअल के पास. सो सोशलिस्ट व्हाट दे बिलीव्ड वाज दैट द प्रॉफिट शुड बी शेयर. जो भी प्रॉफिट है, जो लोग उसको बनाने में हेल्प कर रहे हैं उनके बीच में वो प्रॉफिट को शेयर करनी चाहिए. हाउ वुड अ सोसाइटी विदाउट प्रॉपर्टी ऑपरेट? What would be the basis of socialist society? Now we'll see that. Socialists had different visions of future. Some believed in the idea of cooperatives. Robert Owen, 1771 to 1858, a leading English manufacturer, sought to build a cooperative community called New Harmony in Indiana, USA. Other socialists felt that cooperative could not be built on a wide scale, only through individual initiative. They demanded the governments encourage cooperatives. In France, for instance, Louis Blanc wanted the government to encourage cooperative and replace capitalist enterprises. These cooperatives were to be associations of people who produced goods together and divided the profit according to the work done by members. So what they started, socialists, what they started doing is they started encouraging, or they started asking government to encourage a cooperative setup. ठीक है, कोऑपरेटिव सेटअप ऐसी होती है जहाँ पे सैलरी तो मिलती ही है, बट अगर प्रॉफिट होती हैं तो अकॉर्डिंग टू द कंट्रीब्यूशन यू हैव मेड टू द प्रॉफिट, अगर आपकी कंट्रीब्यूशन ज़्यादा है तो आपको प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग में से ज़्यादा प्रॉफिट पैसे मिलेंगे, ज़्यादा इकोनॉमी वेल्थ मिलेगी. सो दे स्टार्टेड आस्किंग फॉर इट. दे ऑल्सो बिलीव दैट ये एक इंडिविजुअल का काम नहीं हो सकता, एक इंडिविजुअल ये नहीं कर सकता है. सो दे स्टार्टेड फोर्सिंग गवर्नमेंट टू एनकरेज कोऑपरेटिव सेटअप. ठीक है, कोई एक पर्सन ना करे, बट पूरी कोऑपरेटिव को करनी चाहिए ये. कार्ल मार्क्स एंड फ्रेडरिक एंगले added other ideas to this body of argument. Marx argued that industrial society was capitalist. Capitalists owned the capital invested in the factories, and the profit of the capitalists were produced by workers. The condition of the workers could not improve as long as this profit was accumulated by private capitalists. Workers had to overthrow capitalism and the rule of private property. Marx believed that to free themselves from capitalist exploitation, workers had to construct a radically socialist society where all property and was socially controlled. This would be a communist society. He was convinced that workers would triumph in their conflict with capitalism. A communist society was the natural society of the future. So Karl Marx, what did he believe? Karl Marx believed that एक ऐसी society लानी चाहिए जहाँ पे जो property है वो एक person के पास ना concentrated हो, rather community की वो property है, जो भी हो वो सबकी हो, उसकी care करना, उसकी ड्यूटीज़ लेना, और ड्यूटीज़ की तरह अपने रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज़ को लेना, उसके प्रॉफिट को शेयर करना, सबकी शेयर होनी चाहिए, rather it should not be concentrated to one person. So Karl Marx strongly believed that a society should have a communist setup, जहाँ जितने चीज़ें हैं वो पूरे कम्युनिटी को बिलोंग करनी चाहिए. So this was all about this topic. Support for socialism will start in the next topic. By that time what you can do is, you can find there is a question that is given, list two difference between the capitalist and the socialist idea of private property. Capitalist कैसे सोचते थे? Definitely they were the property owners, वो खुद की property सोचेंगे, profit सोचेंगे. और socialist जो थे वो on the other hand side they were the working force, so they'll think about their profit. So you'll do this question, and apart from that you will find any 5 middle question from the paragraph that I have taught. Thank you.